All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Module 9. In this module, we are going to talk about the 5 things that we focus our budget on, the 5 things that we focus our construction on as we do fix and flip properties, specifically in the remodel process. These are the 5 areas that we spend money on. Everything else outside of that, outside of those 5 areas, with very few exceptions, we try not to spend money on. And that this is just an additional thing in the system that keeps us safe and keeps us on budget. So as we go into that, I'm excited to share with you our system here. But before we get too far into it, I need to give you the disclosure. Like we do at the beginning of every module, I am not a licensed attorney, accountant, financial advisor, real estate broker, real estate agent, or any other licensed individual. I'm just a student. I'm a real estate investor, just like you. And these are some amazing systems that I built a lot of wealth using, and I want to share them with you. So hopefully that's okay with everybody. Let's dive in. So the first of the 5 things is the kitchen. In a single family home, the kitchen is the single most important thing that will force appreciation and create appeal on the sales side. So we want to put our emphasis into the kitchen. This is where we should be spending, prioritizing our budget is in the kitchen. So with the kitchen, keep in mind countertops. Now you have to remember your demographic as you're deciding what types of countertops to put in. But on the high end, granite and quartz, right? On the mid range, granite. On the low end, maybe you just do laminate, but a nice looking, really appealing laminate that has a color scheme that matches your other color schemes with your paint and your carpet and your tile. So you want to focus on that. Backsplash. In your low end homes, your backsplash may be just a partial backsplash that's attached to your laminate countertop. In your mid-range homes, this might be a granite backsplash that's 4 inches high that comes up off of your granite countertop. In your high end, and even dipping down into some of the mid-range demographics, you want to do a tile backsplash. You want to do the whole between the lower cabinets and the countertop and the upper cabinets. You want to cover that whole area in a beautiful tile that matches your template. You want new appliances. So I rarely keep the appliances that were in the house when I bought it. And the only times I have done that have been if they were recently replaced and they matched exactly what I would put in, and they're clean, and I can clean them up to a point where they look brand new. But in most cases, low end, mid range, high end, I am replacing the appliances with something appropriate for the demographic. With the low end homes, a lot of times I'm using black appliances, and I like to use the glass top stoves when possible. If price is an issue, then in the low end you can use the electrical coil top stoves. But black appliances, making sure all the appliances match. It may not seem important, but something that buyers are looking for when they're coming in and spending a little bit more money on a house that's been recently remodeled is, is there consistency? Do the doors match? Do the door styles match? If you got 6 panel in half of the house and 3 panel in the other half of the house, that looks funky. And same with the appliances. If you've got half of your microwave's Whirlpool and your dishwasher is General Electric and your stove is Frigidaire, they're going to look out of place because the styling's all different on them. So if you're going to replace the appliances, use the same brand of appliances for the microwave, for the dishwasher, for the stove and oven, for the fridge. Use the same brand. Now, on the low end, if I'm doing a low end demographic, a lot of times I won't include a fridge. Most areas in the country, that's pretty standard on the low end. The homeowners are going to have to buy a fridge when they come in. On my mid-range and high end, I always do include a fridge. So keep that in mind as you're budgeting for appliances. Your demographic is going to demand different things. So on the mid-range and high end, I like for the mid-range, I like to use stainless steel, and usually something that's kind of middle of the line, like Frigidaire or Whirlpool. But stainless steel is going to give it that pop to appeal to your mid-range buyer. And then on the high end, I either like to use a high-end Samsung or LG appliance package, or even get into some of the luxury appliance packages like Wolf and Sub-Zero and Viking, and some of those other higher end appliances. Now, remember to be appropriate for your demographic. There are spectrums inside of each of those three demographics as well. There's a spectrum on the low end. There's a spectrum on the mid range. There's a spectrum on the high end. You may be working on the lower side of the spectrum of the high end, which means that you're going to be appealing to the upper class, but just people who are barely in the upper class, right? Versus if you do a $3 million home, well, there's a very small buyer pool for that, and you need to make it pop. So go with the all-out luxury appliances in that case. But make sure that your appliance package matches your demographic, because the cost of those appliances will also match the demographic that you're putting in there. Obviously, the higher end appliances are going to be more expensive than the lower end appliances. Almost every fix and flip that I've done, with I think only one or two exceptions, I've put new cabinets in. The only time I haven't is if the cabinets have been recently replaced, which was the two that I can think of off the top of my head right now that I didn't put new cabinets into, was because they had recently replaced the cabinets and they were nice and new and beautiful, and there wasn't going to be any problem with selling the house on the back end, and the cabinets didn't look out of place after the rest of the house was remodeled. So in most cases, you're going to need new cabinets. Make sure that the template, and we're going to talk about the template in a future module here in this class, but make sure that your template is updated on a regular basis, at least yearly, to make sure that your cabinets match the styles that are and trending. Cabinets are something that age the house faster than almost anything else. Cabinets, carpet, etc. So make sure your cabinets are new, they're trendy, and in most cases I would replace the cabinets because they're relatively inexpensive for what they are, and for the pop that they make, and the sale appeal that they create in the house. So light fixtures, also very important. Make sure that's appropriate. Make sure light fixtures are trendy. Make sure that you're following the most recent styles, as you're putting light fixtures in. Make sure that they're appropriate for your demographic. On the higher end, you're going to be doing a lot of chandeliers, a lot of nicer candelabras and sconces and those types of things. On the lower end, you might just be using some basic dome lights or can lights, for the low end and the mid-range demographics. But still make sure that they're good-looking fixtures and that are in a color scheme that makes sense. Right? Because some color schemes, it's very obvious that they're not in right now, right? So stay on top of that. Oil rub bronze is something that's trendy and that comes in and goes out of style on a regular basis. Brass is something that comes in and goes out of style. Make sure fix and flip takes a short enough window of time that you shouldn't be affected in an individual property. Just make sure each individual property gets the treatments that are going to be current to the trends. Plumbing fixtures is another thing. Your faucets in the tub, in the showers, the shower heads, the faucets for the sinks. Make sure that they're fixtures and styles that are current. Again, oil rub bronze, brass, satin nickel. These are all styles and finishes that come in and go out of popularity. So stay on top of that. And we're going to talk about in future modules how you can stay on top of that. So let's talk about the number 2 area out of those 5 areas that we spend money on. That's bathrooms. Bathrooms, again, we're going to focus on countertops. Make sure it's appropriate to your demographic. The tile surrounds in the tubs and in the showers. The backsplash that's over the vanity in the sink. Make sure it's demographic appropriate. So for mid-range and high-end homes, you're going to want tile surrounds in your showers. For the low end, you could probably get away with the prefabbed fiberglass surrounds. But make sure that you're meeting your demographic and make sure that it's beautiful. Don't get the ugliest thing just because it's the cheapest thing. Get something that's beautiful and going to make the house pop, because you're still going to have to sell it, right? You're creating a product here. You haven't sold it yet. You're still going to have to sell that thing. So make sure that it's something that's going to be beautiful and add value to the house. New toilets in every house. Nobody wants to sit on someone else's toilet in their own home, right? So just we use right now in the template that we use for our fix and flips, we use a toilet that's $99. It's really nice, really affordable, great price for what you get. White porcelain, and we use it in every single bathroom. I never, ever, ever reuse toilets. Always do new toilets, regardless of the demographic. Right, $100 per toilet, and we put that in pretty much every house in every demographic. So. That's just something that you just need to plan on doing. New cabinets and vanities, usually, like with the cabinets in the kitchen, if it's something that's beautiful and current and in great condition, that looks like it's been replaced recently, you might be able to keep it. But in most cases, you're going to be trashing it and using something new. Pedestal sinks, though, are something that a lot of times I'll just keep because usually porcelain cleans up really well. Most pedestal sinks are made out of porcelain. And it's just an expense that I don't have to incur. So if they've got a pedestal sink there and my plan is to put a pedestal sink back in, a lot of times I'll just see how I can reuse it. But cabinets are something that you can see wear and age on very easily. So the default's going to be to replace it unless it's in pristine condition and current to the styles. Light fixtures, same story. Plumbing fixtures and the tubs and showers all need to be appropriate to the demographic and all need to be current styles and color schemes and style schemes that match everything else you're doing to the house: the tile, the carpet, the paint, etc. The number 3 area that we focus on is master suite. Now, this particular area is only applicable to certain demographics. I put a master suite into every house that I work on, unless it's a lower end demographic home that my comparables show that a master suite is not necessary. So if I can get to my ARV using comparables, and those comparables don't have master suites, and the subject property doesn't have a master suite, then I won't worry about putting one in. But for most properties, they don't meet all of those criterias, and especially in mid-range and high-end, it's a requirement. You have to have a master suite. And what I mean by master suite is it's a master bedroom with an attached master bathroom. Usually both the bedroom and the bathroom are bigger than the standard rooms in the house. They're going to be bigger, nicer, more luxurious. You're going to put just a little bit more into them than you do other areas of the house. I usually like to put a walk-in closet, and in the higher end demographics, do something a little extra to even add some value there. I'm thinking of one that I did recently that was in the high-end demographic that we put cabinets and countertops into the master closet because it was a big master closet. There was a lot of space for hanging stuff, but also we thought it'd be nice to have some drawer space and some cabinet space with a countertop, to assist in getting ready. That's something that the higher-end customers like. So, again, sometimes you're going to be adding bling. That was an example of adding bling is that we put some cabinetry into the master closet. Things like that. Get creative. One of my students likes to put in the kitchen and in the master bathroom, or in the kitchen and the master bedroom and master bathroom. They like to put the plugs that also have the little USB chargers in them, right? So those are obviously more expensive than a normal plug by a lot, but putting them in strategic places in the house is just going to add buyer appeal. It's going to add some of that bling that pushes your buyers over the top to choose you rather than the other properties that they're looking at. And then again, just as a reminder, this may not apply to lower end demographics. The low end demographic is the only demographic you're going to get away with not having a master suite, and that's only if it's not standard in the neighborhood. So look at your comps. If it's a low end demographic and the comps are hitting the ARV that you're shooting for but don't have a master suite, then you can forgo this one. Otherwise, it's something that's required. So let's talk about number 4. That's curb appeal. With curb appeal, landscaping is important. Now, I've had people ask me before, what does curb appeal mean? Curb appeal is when you first drive up to the house and you look at it from sitting in your car, what do you think? Right? That's curb appeal. That's what's going to happen to your potential buyers. They've never seen your house before. They're coming to look at it to see if it's one they're interested in buying. And their first impression is going to be when they pull up to the curb and get out and start walking up to the house, what are they going to see? Here are some key points with curb appeal. Don't go overboard on landscaping. You don't need to be a landscape architect to sell a house. Now, will that help? Absolutely. If you got the budget for it, go for it. But in most cases, light landscaping is all you need to focus on. Grass is usually a must in the mid to high end demographics, not as necessary in the low end demographics. I've sold houses for above what my projected ARV was in the low end demographic and didn't do a thing to the grass. The grass was dead when I bought it. It was dead when I sold it. And, but that only works in the low end demographic. If there's not healthy grass in a mid to high end demographic, you're going to need to put grass in. Also, that's applicable to geography. There are some parts of the country where grass isn't a normal thing. Thinking of kind of the more arid regions of the country, Arizona, New Mexico, southern Utah, there are parts of those states that grass is actually an uncommon thing. Xeriscaping with rocks and plants and trees and dirt and those things are more appropriate. So you've got to keep that in mind as well. Make sure that there are flower beds. Don't just put grass from property line to property line because that looks very plain and actually is a detractor from curb appeal. So make sure that there are flower beds. I usually like to do flower beds all along the property lines, front, sides, and back property lines. And you can do curvy lines, you can do straight lines. You don't need to fill them with flowers. Just cover them in bark or mulch. It's cheap. You can buy them in multiple colors. You can find a color that matches your color scheme for the exterior of the house. Black, maroon, gray. So just fill those flower beds with bark or mulch. Don't go crazy with flowers, trees, or plants. That's just going to be an added expense that isn't going to be necessary. Now, once you get into the high-end demographic, you're going to need to do a little bit more. But for your standard low, mid, and high-end demographics, that's going to be enough to get it to a point where it's sellable. Exterior doors need to align with current design trends. So if you've got an exterior door that is ugly and looks like it's from the 70s, get rid of it and put something in that looks like it was bought this year. And pay attention to those design trends. Pay attention to what's in the neighborhood, especially houses that have been built or remodeled recently. Always paint the doors. I've seen people go out and put the expense into buying and installing a new exterior door, and then they just leave it primer colored. Don't do that. People can tell when it's primer colored. Paint it a color. Find a color that matches your color scheme. There's not a right or a wrong. Well, there probably are some wrong answers out there, but find a color that matches your color scheme. If you need to, we're going to talk about template in the next section, so we'll get into that. I like to paint everything the same color. So if I'm painting one front door a certain color, then usually that means that I'm painting all the rest of the front doors that I do for the rest of the year in that same color, right? So that it's systematized, so there's not as many questions from the contractors and the painters and all that stuff. So, and that also only makes it so I have to make those design decisions once. So pick a color and a color scheme that works, and then just apply that to every house. Garage doors should be free of damage and should work as expected. Remember the cute factor, right? If you can add little things here and there that are inexpensive, but add a lot to the look and appeal of the house, do it. One example would be if you've got a front porch, put a little railing on it, right? If it's big enough, put a little railing on it. It'll make it look cuter and only cost you maybe $100. Make sure it's clean. If you're not going to paint the exterior of the house, or even if you are going to paint the exterior of the house, I recommend getting it power washed first. Make sure that the windows stay clean, especially after you're done with the project and it's listed. Properties tend to get neglected at that point in the game. Don't neglect it. Make sure that it is clean and that it stays clean throughout the entire process from the time you buy it to the time you sell it. And you should set that expectation with your contractors as well. Now, the last of the 5 things is fix any weird things. I always get a little chuckle when I say that that's the 5th thing, but fix any weird things. Now, some examples might be, you buy a house that looks like the homeowner painted it and they didn't know what they were doing. So there's drips and splotches and, stuff all over the place. That needs to be fixed. That's weird. Don't just paint over it, because those same flaws will show up in the new paint job and it'll look like you did it. So make sure that the paint is not weird, that it doesn't have any drips or splotches or anything like that. Make sure that the finish work is crisp and sharp. Make sure that the carpet has a good pad. Also, some of your buyers are going to be needing to get FHA loans, especially in the low to mid-range demographics. Make sure that carpet and padding is regulated by the FHA when it comes to their loans. So make sure that it lines up with FHA approved standards. Your doors need to be appropriate to current design trends. Also, make sure that your doors match. Like I said earlier, you want to make sure that if you're using 3-panel doors, that all the doors in the house are 3-panel doors, because it's the same effect that we get if our appliances are mismatched. It's going to be noticed. And if you buy a house that already has mismatched doors, budget in to fix the doors. Doors cost $50 to $80 a piece. They're not that expensive. So go that extra mile to get that sales appeal, get that sexy factor that you need to be able to sell this house on the back end, because it's going to be a lot less headache in the long run. So make sure that those doors are appropriate to current designs too. One example of that is I'm seeing 5-panel doors, 4-panel doors, 3-panel doors are what's popular right now. 6-panel doors used to be popular, and they're definitely a lot cheaper because they're not popular right now. And I've seen investors in mid-range or high-end homes buy 6-panel doors because they're $10 cheaper than a 3-panel door or than a 5-panel door. Don't make that mistake. Though that's such a simple and cheap thing that could cause a buyer to choose a house they're looking at over yours because they don't like the doors, right? That's a cheap, easy, simple thing. Spend just a little bit of extra money to make sure that they all match and that they all look good. Windows, again, demographic based. If you've got windows where part of the window's covered up in plywood or the whole window's covered up in plywood, that's not going to sell. I don't care what demographic you're in, that is not going to sell. So make sure that you have, if there's a hole for a window, make sure either that hole's covered up so that you didn't know that there was a window there from the inside or the outside. So you're going to need to add the exterior siding over it, as well as the interior sheetrock and appropriate insulation. But also you need to make sure in the mid-range to the high end that they're at least double pane vinyl windows. If they're aluminum, tear them out. If they're single pane, tear them out in the mid-range to the high end. Double pane vinyl at a minimum. Okay, you can do nicer than that if you're getting a little up into the higher end of the higher end. Then definitely you need to do nicer than that. But that's pretty standard. Also, swamp coolers, no longer acceptable. So make sure that your house is even on the low end. If it's a fix and flip, rentals, maybe keep a swamp cooler. But fix and flips, put AC in there. If AC is required in the area you live in, put it in. Get rid of the swamp cooler. Take it off the roof. Don't leave it there, right? Take it off the roof. Patch the hole in the sheetrock on the inside in the ceiling where the air came in from the swamp cooler. Patch over the control panel for the swamp cooler. Make it look like it was never there in the first place, right? So keep in mind that's something that you're going to have to budget for, but replace those swamp coolers and put in the AC. So that wraps up the 5 things. Those are the 5 areas that we focus spending our budget on. Everything else we try to avoid spending money on. That's how this game is played. That's going to keep you on budget. That's going to keep you safe. Just make sure that you're keeping a close eye. Even inside of those 5 things, the budget, your spending can get out of control. So make sure that you're staying on point with those 5 things. But those are the 5 areas that have been proven to force appreciation in a home and create the appropriate sales appeal to make sure that you're selling it on the back end and not having to hang on to it forever. So follow that system, follow it to the letter, and it should keep you as safe as possible. Now that wraps up Module 9. In the next module, in Module 10, we're going to be talking about the remodeling system. So I'm looking forward to chatting you about that. We will see you in Module 10.